Ask the Podcast Coach for February 6th, 2021.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means, hey, it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one, the only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. A little blizzard warning going on here in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's good to be inside on Ask the Podcast Coach. I'll have to shovel a little bit later today.
Yeah, I know. I woke up yesterday and I asked the woman in the tube, I'm like, what's the temperature outside? And she said 9. And I was like, look, I know there are people in Canada that are laughing at me right now, but I was like, holy cow. But Jim, I see you grabbing the, what is that? Is it a pitcher? It's the pot, I guess.
The pot. It is the pot. It's a percolator. Yeah, it's a percolator.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it is time for the Morning Pour. And the Morning Pour, of course, brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. If you need a logo, if you need podcast artwork, if you need a full-fledged website, or really anything to just look professional, then I'm here to tell you, number one, Mark is a podcaster. That is such a huge bonus, because when you try to explain what your podcast is about to somebody who's not a podcaster, they're like, so it's like a radio show? Like, that's not good. So Mark gets podcasting, and he also gets branding like nobody's business. And he'll go over, he'll listen to your show to make sure that your artwork matches your brand. You don't want your show to be all up and fun and bright and funny, and then, Mark gives you a big picture of a casket. That would not work. No. So he's going to get you up and going in the right direction. So check him out. I'm just here to say he did the School of Podcasting logo. He did the Ask the Podcast Coach. The School of Podcasting artwork, because there's a difference. We've talked about that. There's a difference between a logo and artwork. And he also did Ask the Podcast Coach and the Podcast Rodeo Show. So I'm not just saying this because he's a sponsor. I'm saying this because, well, he does really good work. So, Mark, thank you so much. Podcastbranding.co. And Jim, I noticed there as you were holding up your mug.
Dog Podcast Network.
Podcast
if
Network.
You're a dog lover, even if you're not a dog lover, pretty good podcast to listen to on a run, on a walk, while you're taking your dog out. They're hiring, dogpodcastnetwork.com. Lots of great stuff going on over there. And of course, they're big supporters of our show as well. So thank you to James for doing all that they do to support us. Dogpodcastnetwork.com. Check it out and download their latest. They just launched here new. They've probably got a couple episodes in the can at this point.
The dog edition.
Yeah, something to listen to on the road. You don't have to be walking your dog. You could be walking your cat. You could be in the car. So
have you ever tried to walk a cat?
It's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. No. John in the chat room is saying, is Dave waiting for a sponsorship from a national hair franchise before cutting his hair? It's the hair thing is getting a little out of control.
I don't know.
And I actually bought rubber bands to tie it up. And it's not quite long enough to get the ponytail going, but it's close, and I need to do that. To our friends in Clubhouse, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and we will bring you on stage. To those of you that are watching on YouTube, it's super simple. Just go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/join, and we will pop you right into the video, and we'll get you up and going. So here's a fun one. This was from a Facebook group. Matt, in the podcaster support group. I'm a newbie podcaster here. We're on episode 10 now we're talking about crappy audio, Jim. You want to guess what microphone he's using?
Yeti.
That's right. With a Blue Yeti and Audacity. I tried fiddling with
mic. It's not a bad mic.
It's not a bad mic. You just got to know how to use it. And you will hear here, fiddling with the gain, the mic volume in Audacity, and moving the mic further away. Well, right there, you want to move the mic closer to you, usually like about 3 fingers away. However, when I listen to the recording, it's crazy loud, and I need to reduce the loudness. It sounds like the mic is getting maxed out, and the sound gets scratchy. Any ideas of what to do with the help of the sound quality? My wife talks loud when she's really enthusiastic, and the mic is already almost 2 feet away from her when we record. And I was like, there's so much here to comment on, Matt. So the first one, you got to pretend you're Oprah. Like, you get a microphone, you get a microphone. None of this like one microphone for everyone.
No sure.
Because it's going to sound like, you're just recording in a tunnel or a tube or.
I think some people's hesitancy though to share mics is they've got this illusion that separate track audio is somehow better than a single track audio, and that's just not true. Now, in some cases, you can do more when you have multi-track audio. When you have everybody on their own channel, that gives you some options, which is kind of nice. But if you're all in the same room, it doesn't matter anyways, right? So
right.
You're going to get some crosstalk. There's going to be some things on there, but man, just get everybody on different mics and get them close.
Yeah. And if you're like, look, we can't afford another mic, then set it up to record just in the front and the back. Put the microphone between you and your wife, and it's your wife. Get close and talk into that microphone, get a pop filter for it. And it's not a bad microphone if you use it properly, but most people, you can set that up to record just from the front. Oh, and that's the other thing. The front of the microphone is the side of it. I cringed. There are two, not one, but two pictures in Canva.com of this lovely woman talking into the top of the Blue Yeti. And I was just like, no, we need this to stop. I was watching a YouTube video where they got together the cast of Splash, and there was America's father, Tom Hanks, talking into the top of a Yeti. And I'm like, come on, somebody's got to help Tom. That's not right. But it's not a bad mic. You just have to know how to use it. And it's not my recommended mic because, everything you have to buy for it is more expensive. You have to get a pretty decent stand to hold it because it's kind of heavy. You have to get a decent windscreen.
The accessories are expensive.
Yeah. So,
I had them all. I sold them to some YouTuber here in Omaha, and we met at a McDonald's, and I sold it. But yeah, those accessories are expensive. Dave, I think the solution too for a lot of folks is get yourself monitored. That Yeti has a latency free out on it. Plug that thing in a group setting. Plug that thing into a powered microphone amplifier, and give everybody earbuds. When you actually hear how you sound, you talk a lot different. So, people who talk loud on the mic, when they hear themselves overmodulate, they will come down a little bit. When it gets loud in their ears, they will come down a little bit. So that's the best. I can't imagine doing a podcast without having real-time audio back in my ears as I sound, because that USB audio sometimes that's coming back, not very good. It's not very good. So you want to make sure you get everybody amplified, and then don't try and split that thing with just a regular splitter, because the volume will go down each time you split it. Make sure you're going through a head. Those are like $60. You can buy some cheap ones for $30. Get an amplifier. Yeah.
And the other thing there is, I don't think there's a peak indicator. I just looked on the Yeti I have behind me, and you don't. No. So you want to turn it up, and what you want to look, you said it sounded scratchy. That means it's distorting. You want to look in Audacity, and you want to make sure that in Audacity, click on the little button to say, I think it's like start monitoring, and you'll see as you talk that it starts flashing. You want that to be green and yellow, nowhere near the red, because when you go into the red, that's where it's all distorted and things like that. But I'm a big fan of, get a couple Samson Q2Us and a PodTrack P4, and you are good to go, and your sound will improve a gazillion %. I just watched a video this morning from, I think it's Travis. It's either Travis or Trevor, something with a T. One of the nice fellows over at Buzzsprout, and they were saying, how do you stand out in a podcast? And he was like, number one, audio. Like you can't just talk into a microphone and just, ramble on for 20 minutes. That doesn't work. And you've got to do some editing, and it has to sound good, because there are people that sound good. And if you don't, that's an easy, okay, well, if you have two shows talking about the same thing, this one sounds good and this one doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's you're done. So, and then I thought this was funny. This is from, I'm going to say Pariah, Pariah. I need some, this is, I think we've all been here. I need some commiseration and comfort. I just wrapped up an hour and a half interview with a busy band. Jim, you know how this is going to end? You want to guess?
They forgot to hit record.
They were close. It was
Okay.
it was a good interview. I had my mic routed through a separate channel and recording than the band's, and my mic wasn't recorded.
Oh.
So that could be worse. She says the cat I'm cat sitting had disconnected a wire while I was shooting her. While I was shooing her. No, she wasn't shooting the cat, just for the record. As I was shooing her out of my studio, so she ended up with half an interview. So the good news is you got the
not her half, right?
Yeah.
She got the band's half, so she could salvage it with edits, right?
Yeah. That's basically what people were saying in the chat room. It's like, I just re-record your part. And then she was worried that it wouldn't have kind of the same inflection as the original. And she said she said on their track, I guess she could somehow hear a little bit of herself. So she kind of could just barely hear what she was saying. So she could remember what to say. And I said, well, the other thing you could do is kind of go NPR and make this a narrative style podcast. You've got the answers. Now just weave a story and have them fill in the blanks. That would be another way to do that. But
you could get a friend to get on the line and pretend to be the other side and have that conversation. Like, I mean, if you got it, you can make some quick transcripts out of it and send it to them. Now, they don't need to repeat everything, but it just would help to have somebody on the other side to just have that conversation with. Because when you're talking by yourself, you use a different cadence and different inflection and different all those, the things that you do. But Dave, I would say, hey, I did this interview. I would contact you. Say, Dave, I did this interview with this band. I need somebody to just record some of the questions too. Can you play the part of the band and just get together? I mean, hey, it's not perfect, but it's better than doing it by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jim, how's your new Mac doing?
The Mac is great. Mac came in on Wednesday, so it came early. It's up. Leave it to Apple. They originally said the 12th, and then they said the 5th. And then they were like, hey, it's the 3rd. Like it was literally kept moving. The time frame kept moving up. It has been a little bit of a chore to get everything converted over. Fix the video. I was having some jittery issues with my USB bus on the old computer, and nothing, of course, here. Oh, by the way, it's Mac Mini. It's the new M1 Mac Mini, 16 gig of RAM, and I think the 512 gig hard drive. Those are the only things you can configure on that thing.
Right.
It's been, but I had it set up and configured. It came Wednesday, so that would have been Wednesday afternoon, and I podcasted with it on Thursday. Been having to monkey with the video settings a little bit, but I think I've dialed them in. Connected with Ed Sullivan, who we'll talk about here mid-show. Ed helped me kind of on the sound and how to figure some things out and how to work some stuff. But the biggest problem, Dave, I had is finding the freaking time. Like it moved on me. So whenever I'm doing my intro, I'll say, this is the Average Guy Network, and I'll say a date, recorded on, and I always look over just to confirm the date, and it's not there because it's moved, right? It's in the upper right-hand corner instead of being in the bottom right-hand corner. It has really helped, I think, in everywhere I'd hoped. The video rendering, I rendered a hour and 25-minute podcast. So Home Gadget Geeks this week is us talking about that. So if you want all the details, head over to theaverageguy.tv a little bit later when I produce that thing today. But the rendering on that hour and 25-minute podcast, 8 minutes. The video rendered in 8 minutes.
Wow.
It's 720p, right? But it's 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's fast. So I did it in iMovie, and I did it. I tried to mimic all my processes from before. So I tried to take exactly what I did. I went out to my file directory and said, okay, here's the size, because I make an MP3, I make an MP4 for YouTube, and then I make a video large and a video small for my RSS feeds. The video large and small were like 6 minutes and 3 minutes. Like they were just super fast on processing those right out of iMovie. It did change a little bit. Like I had been, and here I'll ask you this question. So I had been creating, I had dropped it into Audacity and create, because it's the video file. Use the FFmpeg to just get the audio. I dropped that full lossless with AIFF, right? That the Apple lossless, and then I'd move it into Auphonic. But coming out of iMovie, I'm pretty sure that's Fraunhofer on the MP3 encoder. So I just dropped it out of iMovie as an MP3 because that you don't have to. The iMovie will allow you just to drop it as an MP3.
Right.
Then I moved it over to Audacity from there, and Audacity leveled it out for me. What I
Right.
didn't do, and maybe I should test this, is take the lossless file, move that into Audacity, and then compare the two. I'm sorry, moved it into Auphonic, and then compare the two.
Yeah.
Does Auphonic do better with lossless, or does it do better? Is it okay if I put an MP3 in there?
I always keep with, if it's a PC, the WAV file, or the lossless on the Apple, I always stay in that format until the final mix down. That's just the way I've always been
You leave it lossless till the final.
till the final one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
you've got a good strategy there. It's like, okay, let's do both and test with our ears and see if it's a difference.
I do need to. It sounded fine, to be honest with you. In fact, it sounded better than it ever has coming out of. I when I play my music, you heard that just a second ago. Well, you would have heard it if you were in the pre-show.
Well,
The music is in there, and it kind of my old process kind of crunched the music. You could hear the compression
Yeah.
in it. I'm not hearing that same compression in it anymore.
hmm.
So
Yeah.
I've got some things to kind of work out, but it was a little bit of a chore because you have to kind of test all those things. You're like, okay, the video large is this size, and I expect this size of a file. How do I get that? I used Handbrake. I brought there's a
Mhm.
M1 version of Handbrake for the new Mac. It's in beta, but it worked pretty well. Like I just it didn't take me any longer to do my production time because I saved so much time on the
Yeah.
video rendering. I used to just set that on I have a Core i7 4770 for all the hardware nerds out there.
Yeah.
And that would probably take
Can you say that
me-
again? That was just so nerdy. What was it
Core,
again?
it's a core it's a Core i7 4770. Not it's locked. It's not the unlocked version, just to be
Of course.
Yeah.
You're not going to go
Just to-
unlocked. That's crazy.
clear. Just to be clear. It's
I
not
just
a-
love that it was like it's the Core 75775675737.
8686753095.
Yeah, there's like a lot of sevens in there. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
No,
And
it would have taken the old process would have probably taken that big of a file. It would have been 15 or 20 minutes to render. So it's about half the time.
Well, that's what I noticed using Hindenburg, and then you can pull in RX7 effects, which is great until you go to render it, and then you're like, oh wow, adding that deverb to that channel just makes your export crawl because it's processing that audio as it goes through, and you're like, what's the deal? So but Daniel says, yeah, you don't want to recompress an already compressed file. And
So if I do, I have an MP3 that's compressed, right? And
Right.
if I move that to Auphonic, and it does its magic on it, and it leveled it for me. It
Right.
put it in negative 16 LUFS, and the things that I have it do sounded fine. But the ideal situation, right, would be to move the lossless file, the AIFF file.
I remember that the early days of podcasting, and Adam Curry was exporting. He had a show called The Daily Source Code, and he exported it at 64 kilobits per second mono. Sounded phenomenal. I was exporting it the same thing, but I was recording as an MP3. I was editing in an MP3 and then exporting it as MP3, and I sounded like I was just, hey, welcome to I was like, what is the deal? And somebody said, oh, wait, you're recording. No, don't record as an MP3. Record as a WAV file, edit as a WAV file, and then export as MP3 when you're done. When you're ready to go, you're ready to ship it out. And that's when I was like, oh. And as soon as I did that, my audio got better way quickly. So,
well, the difference for me in the lossless is that in the bigger file, that would be a WAV. Some people have a WAV file, it'd be the same thing. Is that, well, not technically, but you know what I mean. So is that the speed at which I upload and it's processed at Auphonic. So I'm using the Auphonic web service to do this. I don't have it locally. Moving that bigger lossless file over just takes longer, and it's more on my bandwidth cap, right? So I was kind of thinking, well, I'll test this out. So I think maybe later on today or tomorrow, I'll move the lossless file into Audacity or into Auphonic, and then compare the two. Dave, this gives me a great opportunity. I'm going to spend a little time with Ed over there at Sonic Cupcake. rethinking some of my audio, because now I can, it's like, hey,
Right.
I'm changing. What kind of things can I do differently? What kind of things should I do differently to kind of help change things? So,
Michael, one of our awesome supporters, is asking, is an old G5 Mac any good today? And I have no clue. I'm very rusty on my Mac these days.
some of those, and I don't know what the specs on the G5. Oftentimes, so like Mac will stop offering the OS upgrades for the older versions of the Mac, and so you're stuck. Like, and you just but if it works for you, like if it's working, if you can get the software to work, that's the key. Does the software work?
Yeah, if it doesn't, then well, it's time to update. I had where is no, I guess I didn't do that. There was somebody in one of the Facebook groups that was using a bunch of PreSonus stuff, and just the hardware didn't work anymore, and they were kind of like, what do I upgrade to? And what was really weird is he wanted to stick with PreSonus, and I was like, but that's the company that just made you obsolete. It was like, and I guess that's just the case. I mean, it's technology. When you buy something on its way out the door, we're going to laugh someday when we look back at the PodTrack P4. We're going to like, what? Oh, man, that old thing? Holy cow. Look at this new thing. It's the size of my thumb, and it'll cook you breakfast. It
won't even be a thing, Dave. It'll just it'll be built into something else, or it won't even be a thing to buy. Hey, let me clarify some things in the chat room really fast. So I made a comment about a bandwidth cap. No, the larger lossless file, like a WAV file of audio, is pretty big. MP3, of course, is crunched down. When I upload those to Auphonic, they charge me by the minute there, not by the size of the file. So I'm not worried about my cap there, although I only buy a certain number of minutes there. So I have bandwidth problems here. And so sending larger audio files to Auphonic counts against my internet bandwidth cap. So there we go. A little clarification.
And I got to agree with Kyle. I bought the desktop version. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles in terms of like it'll post to here and add a pre and post thing. But if you just wanted to clean up stuff,
everybody says that because I use the web, and then they're like, oh yeah, but the web has more features and they update it more often. And so I go, oh okay. I spend I think $11 a month.
Yeah, it's not
it's not terribly expensive. But then you're right. All I really do is use it to level out and set the LUFs and make an MP3. So, maybe it's worth it. It's what, $80, $90, something like that for the
something like that. Version? Yeah. So, but if you just happen to pop in to Ask the Podcast Coach, we're at askthepodcastcoach.com/live in Clubhouse. If you want to, if you have a question, just raise your hand. And if you're watching us on YouTube, just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. And here's another question I dug out from a Facebook group. This is from Matthew. This was in Podcast Movement. He says, I started doing a podcast editing for hire, but I have no clue of what the best place is to find people looking for podcast editing for hire services. And I was like, well, that would be podcasters. So I guess to me, what I would do, and it would be a painful journey, is I would go into Apple. I would look for shows. Well, I was going to say look for shows with the Anchor logo, but the people that have the Anchor logo are probably using Anchor because it's free. So when you go, will you pay me to edit your show? They might go, no, because they're looking to podcast for free. But find somebody with horrible audio, which really isn't that hard to do. And then I would take a small snippet of their show and I would edit it and fix whatever it is that you think you could fix and send them a before and after and go, hey, I'm so-and-so. Here's this. I did a little example of what I could do for your show. If you're interested, let me know and we can talk about pricing. So, but it's just a matter of it's weird when you're looking for great audio, you can't find any. And when you're looking for bad audio, you can't find any. I don't know. Jim, any advice?
Yeah, I think you're right. You got to treat it like any small business. You got to get your name out there. You got to take a risk and say, hey, I was listening to this and here's what I can do for you. And oftentimes people are like, oh, now they're going to ask you, well, how'd you do that? And you're like, well, that's the magic.
Yeah. I used my X amount of time of experience, and I know what to do. So
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
know a lot of people, they think if I become a podcast consultant, money will just fall from heaven. You still have to treat it like a business. You have to go out and find people. And the other thing is, especially if you're working now, getting them to launch is okay. That's but again, some people are like, oh, I'll just watch YouTube. So you still have to knock on a lot of doors, and it's not the cash cow I think that everybody thinks it is. It's hot, and that's true, and a lot of people want to start, but
Yeah, but a lot of people don't want to separate themselves from their money for you. Like
no.
they're not. I mean, they're buying Anchor for God's sake. So it's not like, okay, they've started at the bottom, right? As far as price goes, not quality, but as far as price goes. And so you're like, hey, you want to spend some money on me? I mean, you got to convince them to do it. It's tough work.
Coach Dave says wade through iTunes or Apple Podcast, depending on what device you're on, and have a listen. There are lots of podcasters that can use an audio editing boost. They often have websites. Yeah, and that would be the other thing. I would make a website. If you're going to put your shingle out there, put your shingle out there.
Yeah.
Go over to wherever, Maple Grove Partners, go over to coolerwebsites.com, get some hosting, throw up a website. Because if you want people to trust you, I always say I'm not buying a car from a guy in a tent. You know what I mean? If like he's just, popped up, we've got a nice baseball field at the end of my street here. If that guy pops up a tent and has a car outside, I'm like, I want somebody I can go back to that's going to be there if I need help and support and things like that. And if you don't have any of that, it just looks like you're some guy in the basement that's asking people if I can edit your audio.
Dave, I have a TikTok page. Isn't that enough? Can't I just have a TikTok page?
No, I'm sorry.
Darn it.
That is not going to work.
Hey, if folks in Clubhouse wanted to join us, what do they need to do? What's their?
They raise their hand. We've got 13 people. Okay. Patrick and Colin and Lisa.
We're looking for questions, right? That's what we're looking for from
If
Clubhouse.
anybody has a question, just raise your hand.
Chit chat, but questions.
And I will bring you up on the stage, and we'll be happy to answer your question. Speaking of BS stuff, this is one of those things that how I say there are times when people really obsess over things that they're just like, wow, that's kind of a waste of your time. This one I've never heard of. This is from, I believe her name was Laura. I've been warned off posing questions in the opening sentence of my podcast episode descriptions because certain platforms don't like it and won't promote it. I have never heard this in my life. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
No. And so she said, has anyone had this happen? And I love this because this, of course, then got into a conversation on keywords. And I know in Libsyn, in our dashboard, it says, hey, here's where you put your keywords. Oh, yes, by the way, Apple completely ignores these. And so James Cridlin, who is he's definitely a journalist. He's also definitely a giant nerd, chimed in. He said, hey, just so you know, there is no keyword metadata in use in podcasting. None. Zero. Zilch. Is there algorithms ranking the show search results on what users type in? Absolutely. Is that anything to do with keywords? Nope. There are none in a podcast RSS feed. We will agree to disagree on this one. Somebody had said that previously. It's a fancy way of saying, I do believe you're wrong, but since I understand the technology here, and since this group is literally called the No BS Facebook group, I'm going to call out any discussion of keywords in podcasting as BS because they literally don't exist. So if you're worried about keywords, now that's not to say keywords on your website don't have anything to do, but that was one that I was like, yeah. And I see people at Libsyn, they'll put in like 30, like literally 30 keywords. And I'm just like, wow. I don't know if there's a program that they typed in and it spit out a bunch of keywords or whatever, but
Otter will do that for you based on your transcripts.
Yeah.
That's
pretty slick.
Might be a good way. We spent a lot of time at Gallup optimizing the posts for the first 100 words. That seems to be titles in the first 100 words seem to be the most important right now.
I have it on my list of things to investigate is I want to look into like blogs. There's got to be blogs on how to write a really good first paragraph of a blog. Like, because that's the one that sucks you in. And I was like, what's the strategy to use there to write a really good first paragraph. Because in Apple, you have the whole, you know, you have the Apple, you have your description, then you have your Apple summary. And your Apple summary kind of is a thing. Andreas is asking us, how do you join on live? It's just askthepodcastcoach.com/join. So,
Where'd that come in at?
From, I guess it's on.
Oh, YouTube.
Andreas? Yeah.
No, it's the YouTube chat.
Yeah. So, and we can actually, if you jump in, we can take care of that. But I do need to say thank you so much.
Yeah, hold on. Before you do that, could you? The first half I drank a lot of coffee. Could you?
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Help me? Thank you. I'm thirsty.
But we do want to say thank you to our awesome supporters. First of all, of course, the teacher's pet. You heard about it at the beginning of the show, and I love this picture of this dog. Actually, right now when I blow dry my hair, I kind of look like that. But it's a big old. I guess it's not a beagle. Is it a beagle?
I don't know. I don't know my dogs. I should.
It's a dog with.
Maybe James can help us out.
I'm going to say James would definitely know.
Yeah.
James, of course, from the Dog Podcast Network. And one of the things they're doing over there, they're looking for 101 dog stories. So if you are a creator, content creator. Oh, and by the way, you have a story about a dog. You can actually enter this contest with a chance to win $5,000. So check that out along with all the great podcasts over there geared towards dog lovers at dogpodcastnetwork.com. And we always thank our awesome $20 supporters. Felix over at the Latin Podcast Awards, latinpodcastawards.com. This is an award show for, as you might imagine, Latin type podcasts, and been around since 2017. It's part of the Audio Dice Network. Check it out, latinpodcastawards.com. Glenn the Geek Hebert over at horseradionetwork.com. If you like horses, you'll love Glenn and horseradionetwork.com. I think he's got 15 or 16 shows all about horses. Max Trescott, if you like to get in a plane and fly around, you're going to love Max because he talks about all the aviation news talk, and you can find that at aviationnewstalk.com. Kim over at Toastmasters101.net. Got to give a shout out to Kim. She did a presentation this week on podcasting to a bunch of Toastmasters people and gave me a huge shout out. So check her out over at Toastmasters101.net if you're looking to develop your voice and reduce your editing time and just improve your content in general. Toastmasters101.net. Shane at Spyberry.com, who was on the School of Podcasting last week, talking about his show Tourpreneur. He actually kind of navigated a show about travel during a pandemic when nobody can travel. And I thought it was, I enjoyed that interview. Shane's a great guy. Check him out over at spyberry.com. The Indie Drop-In Network at indiedropin.com. This is where if you have a show about true crime or comedy, or if it's just spooky stories, go over and see Greg, and he can basically put your episode in rotation, and they do a lot of work to get people to your content, indiedropin.com. We just heard from Michael over at Baby Mountain Radio Productions. If you need help with a podcast, he could probably help you out with it as well. He says we're you know what, Michael? I forgot he sent me a new slide. I keep forgetting to put in his new slide. It's really cool. But babymountainradio.com, where podcasting and hard work are made fun. We mentioned him earlier. Ed Sullivan, soniccupcake.com, has been helping out Jim. And if you need help with anything sounding good, if you want an editor for your show or whatever, check out Ed over at soniccupcake.com. And I thought, because we haven't thanked them in a while, they're on my website. Our $10 supporters, if you go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, Frasley over at b-great.today, Dr. Norm at beyondthebedside.net, Jeffrey at Podnuts, the Repair Podcast at PODNUTZ, Jonathan at weeklyawesome.com, Kyle Bondo in the chat room at gagglepod.com. He also does Podwrecked and a bunch of other ones. Katie Holmes at outwittrade.com, Martin at christianstt.com, Michael, we just mentioned him, babymountainradio.com. I need to check. I think he's not a 20 out of 10. That'd be crazy. Nick over at cincinnati-soccer-talk.com, and Sean at beyourownnerd.com, and Josh Rivers, better known as podcastguymedia.com. Now, if you'd like to support the show and be on that $10 list, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, or go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/store. We've got plays that you can donate once, or you can do all sorts of, you can buy my book, you can join the School of Podcasting, you can get in line to donate to sponsor Jim's Cup, all sorts of fun stuff over at askthepodcastcoach.com/store, and joining us here live on the YouTubes. And I see, of course, it's the second half of the show. People go nuts. So people on Clubhouse that raised your hand will be with you in just a second. Right now, we're bringing on Andreas. How are you, buddy?
Hi. Nice to see you both, Dave and Jim. You hear me properly, right?
Yeah, you sound good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, my questions basically are a couple here. First of all, my podcast is all about hard rock and heavy metal, so it's all about music-related stuff.
Yes.
So,
okay.
I would like actually to ask you specifically your opinion regarding the background music. We normally use, while I do interviews or we do episodes, the background music. So I'm not sure actually if in order to have a high quality show, that is something that is going to make the difference, right? To have not copyrighted music in the background while somebody else is speaking. So first of all, that's the first question. And the second one, I really love the actual transition that you have while you present like a little piece of the audio, like a piece of the interview. It's like I'm not sure if it's like go from one of the AirPods to the other one. So I would like actually your insight regarding this, because I really love that. It's going to make something like stand out by the time you're presenting what you're going to talk about in the episode later.
Like
so I would
tease.
like that one. Yeah, exactly. Like that sound. What's the idea of this one where I can get it, because it's useful. I really would like to know more about this, like your idea or where I can get that kind of sounds, right?
Well, it's a matter of listening to the interview, and then when you hear something, because a tease, the point of it, think of we're not gonna go dirty, but if you think about it, when you're with somebody and you're making each other feel good, if they start to tease you, every bone in your body goes, I want more. And so you want an audio tease to do the same thing. You want it to be like, they can say, I thought I was safe, and then I turned around and bink, and then the music comes in. You're like, wait, what happened when he turned around? So an audio tease is something that's, or if they go, and without even knowing it, I made $3,000. In comes the music, like, wait, what'd they do that made $3,000? So it's got to be, but if it's something like, okay, today on the show, I was born in Arizona and my mom actually worked for the church. In comes the music. I don't care. Like, what? Okay, yeah, it's Arizona and the church, but that doesn't make me want more. It's true and it's real, but I don't know. Jim, any tips on a tease?
No, I think, I have a guy that does that for me at work. He goes through the transcripts and reads them. And it's actually kind of, I think it's easier to find those quotes by reading them as opposed to
like
listening
the translation or
the transcription. Yes. And so that might be another trick is to get it transcribed. You can use Otter, or there's a bunch of other services that'll do the automated stuff for you. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then let your eyes find those quotes. Then kind of read through, and you'll kind of see
what stands out for you. That's something like is going to be like the catchy part, right? That's what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can kind of find those sometimes.
And regarding the little sound effect, Dave, that I really love it. This is really something like very peculiar. Where did you get it?
Which
like at the beginning of like you're about to present. Okay, I'm talking with Jim, and here's a little piece, and there's
and it's a whoosh. I use let's see, Audio Jungle. .net is one where you can get a lot of sound effects. I'm not sure how legal it is, but I know you can go to the library and get CDs of sound effects. I don't know exactly how legal that is to use. But Audio Jungle is where I get a lot of my stuff. And you can just type in whoosh or transition, and you'll find stuff like that.
You'll pay for those. Okay. You'll buy those and pay for them.
The actual, this is not mono, right? This is like the
it's stereo.
The thing that does stereo stuff, right?
So you can do that in some programs, like in, I believe Audacity will let you pan stuff. And I know the one thing I hate, Hindenburg doesn't have a pan feature. I know in Audition, you can turn on a feature, and with
And
volume, you get a little
you
line
adjust
that
it.
shows you how, like, you can adjust the volume for
Okay.
that. Well, when you turn on pan, you get another line, and you'll see that when you drag, you'll have this line, and if it's all the way up, it's left, and if it's all the way down. So you can have
Yeah.
a sound that as the sound is going through, all of a sudden it goes, and it goes from one headphone to the other. And some sound effects are made that way, and then other ones you can use software to pan it. But there's no pan in Hindenburg Journalist. That's
Yeah,
one
well-
feature I wish they would add.
As far as I know, I'm not sure if Jim maybe has any insight regarding this, but as far as I know, Audacity, what allows me is like when you're producing the music, right? Like an album, so you're panning, let's say that percent right, that percent left. So it's not like I
Right.
can adjust through the track. So it's just like a specific adjustment through all the. So I wanted to know, that's a great trick. It's something that stands out in School of Podcasting, and of
Yeah.
course, it's something that is going to let people know, okay, this guy really is, going big or going home at the very end. That's what it actually for me is.
Well, and I use whooshes and sound effects just to kind of trigger the brain that, hey, we're either moving into a new topic
Mhm.
or here's the interview. It's just something that, and a lot of times it's what I'm actually doing is copying what was probably a weird, in many cases, I've done a introduction if I'm doing an interview. And I'll be like, hey, Jim, I'm going to do an introduction here. I'll probably do another one later. And I'll be like, hey, today joining on the show, it's Jim Carlson. He's Home Gadget Geeks. You know him from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going? What are you up to, buddy? And I'm like, oh, that was weird. So I will just cut that out. I'll do the interview again. And I'm like, here's my talk with Jim. And then I'll just
Exactly.
I'll have Jim, and I'll get, because I always say, Jim, welcome to the show. That's whoever I'm talking to. When I get done with the introduction, the next thing I'm going to say is, Andreas, thanks for coming on the show. So then I can,
You're good to the cheese right away, right? This
yeah,
is,
I can always do the
people just
introduction
care
later.
about the content, straightforward, and that's
Yeah.
it.
And then
Awesome.
Kyle had a question or a comment as well, and I would agree with this. I'm not a huge fan of music beds because I'm a musician and they distract the crap out of me. So if I'm talking to you and I've got this going on in the background, and even if it's soft, especially if there's words in it, there are times when I'm like right now, my musical brain is like, I think he just went to a G to a, that's A minor.
Okay.
That's definitely a D, and then a G, and then back to the C. So that can be, sorry, it's a dog reaction. It's Pavlov over there. So now on one hand, you can use music in some cases if they're telling a story, and all of a sudden they're talking about the time their grandma died, and you want to mix in some sad music.
Like
You
put
can
some
do that.
mood there, yeah.
Yeah, you can put some mood music in, but just for me, I'm not a huge fan of Jim music in an interview.
No, I don't like it.
Yeah,
There's appropriate
Not at
times.
all, yeah.
There's
Just like
appropriate
specific-
times.
Okay.
Yeah, there's appropriate times for him, but
yeah,
in most cases, no. But you know what, Andres, you do your thing. If you,
Yeah.
and you didn't ask this question. We kind of inserted it.
No,
but,
it's basically, of course, you're
Yeah.
your CEO in your podcast, right? So it doesn't matter.
totally.
But what I
Yeah.
mean is, because of the context, all your insight, all what is actually at least standard for me is, checking out people that is actually more experienced
Yeah.
than me.
Yeah.
So of course, if I can let's get some insight there, is very useful.
Yeah.
So it's for me that, and all the previews, we're almost like 45 episodes now in the catalog. So most
What's
of them have the audio. I put it like really subtle in the background music. So I wanted to know, like, if this one is something that is going to show up as really professional, or it sounds like it's
Ask
more
your listeners.
amateur. Yeah.
Ask your
Yeah,
listeners what they
I-
think.
I don't think it's going to make you sound bad. I just think it can be distracting. Where I've seen background music really quiet used is if you have bad recording and you're trying, and you have like some sort of hum or something that you can't get rid of. You put a little music over it. I mean, that's how I had a really old car and it was awful and it sounded bad.
Okay.
So the way I fixed my car was to turn up the radio in the car, and I didn't. There you go. Problem solved.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Thank you very much both for
Yeah.
the
Andres,
insight.
where do we find your podcast?
First of all, you can find us in our website. It's basically in Spanish, this show. So it's Colmillo Rockero. Actually, well, not sure if you can see. Maybe this is there.
There we go. All right.
Maybe I can put it in the chat so you don't
Yeah,
have to worry, right?
That'd be great.
There you go. We're
right.
going to be in the podcast platforms. Normally, we have a link that is going to be just like yours of the School of Podcasting / platforms. So we do the same. We have a link, so I'm going to put it there, and people can be able to find all the information with one single click.
Awesome. Thanks, Andres.
Awesome.
Thanks for jumping
Thank
in.
you for your insight. Have a
You bet.
great day.
You
Bye.
bet. Take care. Have a
See
great
ya.
weekend.
All right. And coming to the stage from Clubhouse, again, if you raise your hand over there, we will bring you on. I know this guy. It's Raf from Served, the one and only. This is a guy we talked till about 4 a.m. at Podcast Mid-Atlantic. And I was like, you have to start a podcast.
Nice.
Because he has such a great passion to just help veterans. He's all about getting, and you would know, you're a vet,
I'm a
you're in the
veteran,
Army,
yeah.
is transitioning from vet life to civilian life.
Yep, for sure.
And that's what Raf's show is all about. Raf, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Dave? How are you? Thank you for having me on stage here in Clubhouse.
Yeah, what's your question?
Well, my question is, I was on Clubhouse perusing around, and I was on another podcasting room, and there was a statement made, and I wanted to get your thought and opinions. Well, first of all, thank you for the nice intro. Thanks for having me on stage and for the nice intro. The statement was, and you ready for this?
Yes.
Podcasts are dying. That we are at the climax. We are at a supernova state where the sun of podcasts is going to self-burn itself out. And this was a very bold statement made in a very big room.
Right.
Steve from Club Pod Podcast Magazine was the moderator. And it was sort of like, dang, that's a pretty big prediction and statement. And I didn't know who the guy was, and I'm not going to name drop him, but the company apparently is it's called Barstool, and I was kind of trying to do some reading on them, and so they have a pretty good.
They have a big following.
A big following, but they're kind of a powerhouse. It's not just some dude on the street holding a sign says that the world's coming to an end type deal, right? I mean, this is a company that has the financial resources to go out and spend money in research and all that other jazz. So I sided over with Steve because he kind of said, well, the end of podcasting is not here and podcasts are not dying. And so the initial conversation, so let me back up, was, our platforms and social media platforms like Clubhouse, like the new XYZ that's going to come out in the future, is that killing the podcast, short form, long form, and that's how the conversation was. That's what the room was about.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I wanted to ask my favorite guy, Dave Jackson, because as you said, when we met that one morning by passing by the bar, going to the room. Ending the podcast conference there. I was still on the fence whether I even wanted to do a podcast, so I felt that it would just be a great conversation to have here with you, since I respect you and value your opinion.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I think I can answer that with not even one word, one noise. Yeah, that's just here's it's just where. Well, here's what's fun. Rob Walsh has a presentation about how all that marketing BS is, or marketing something is BS, and he has screenshots going back to, I think, 2007, predicting, podcasting is dead. And then in 2009, podcasting is dead. And then this is, it happens over and over and over. They said that the VCR was going to kill movies. Cable was going to kill free TV. Radio is still around. I love the comment in the chat room. Kyle says, radio predicting the death of podcasting since 2006. He also says, by the way, Raf, Kyle's in the chat room here on YouTube, says, hashtag you've been served. So
there you go. That's awesome.
I don't think, Jim, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, we go around about this here. It's it goes in cycles and things. We actually need. If I were to say anything about the podcasting industry, it's consolidating, and that doesn't make it dying. It makes it stronger because it means money can be focused more in areas to make it better. And so, Dave, I'm not sure we need more podcasters. That we got a pretty big variety of them. We're adding a lot in. I think we just need our current podcasters to be better. And so I'd like to see a consolidation cycle where just the quality continues to go up. We get better tools, we get better processes. I mean, look at we've done in the last 5 years on Ask the Podcast Coach. So no, it's not dying. It may be consolidating, or it may be slowing down. It's not going to die. So I don't, Rabbi. That's about as big a clickbait as you can possibly find in that setting there on Clubhouse for sure.
Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of bring it up because if folks are now getting into the art of podcasting and having it as a hobby, you don't want to hear this doom and gloom. And it's backed up by this major research firm and all this and all that, and oh my gosh, I don't want to get into it. So I totally agree with you. I went on there and I actually got a speaking spot. I got brought up on stage and I said, look, I side with Steve out of a Podcast Magazine, just exactly what you guys said. And here, interestingly enough, like minds, right? So I actually wrote it down here in my notes. They said, or Steve specifically said, as film was to the VCR, so there you go, the VCR is to Netflix. Music to records to radio, there's Kyle's, to XM satellite radio, to Spotify, right? It's this emerging of tools that we have to continue the trade and the art, because I consider podcasting an art in itself. And tell folks, don't listen to that, because it's going to prevent you from getting your story out, your message out, having fun, and meeting awesome people.
Well,
so that's my take.
3,038 people yesterday disagreed with that guy and started a podcast. 3,038 podcasts were launched yesterday. So I agree that with Jim, I think there are times what I really would like to see is not 3,038 podcasts launched. I'd like to see 3,038 new podcast listeners. I really wish, I would love to see Google or Amazon or one of these companies that's added podcasting to their platform make a commercial that's like, I did see Audible. Audible has a thing with Kevin Hart and the 1,000 Hour guys, Malcolm Gladwell, and they were talking about the Audible app, and they did say and podcast, and they showed that you could listen there. But I wish we could get more listeners, because there's still plenty of people that haven't listened to a podcast yet. So.
Well, Dave, the metrics that were being used were not actually podcasts created or podcasts out there. It was the metric that they were using was listening. So the doom and gloom was sort of that. Instead of listening to a podcast, people are on Clubhouse listening to this. No. Instead of listening to it, and that's where they were getting their numbers from. But in the end, I agree. People are going to do what they want to do. They have their behaviors. Some folks are going to be on Clubhouse for a little bit and then go the on-demand audio capacity of what podcasts are. You're not going to beat that anywhere. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rav, where do we find your podcast?
Oh yeah. So right now there's 9 episodes. So it's one of these things where I was trying to really find what I was trying to do with Served, and Served is SRVD. .vet, V-E-T.
Nice.
So srvd.vet. I have 9 episodes out there that kind of been sitting out there, but my whole thing is I wanted to make sure that I was going to carry out this mission in the most appropriate of ways. So I got the 9 episodes. They're soaking out there, evergreen content. So if you know of it, know of a military family, and sometimes they just need help, the program is called the Leaving to Living program. The Leaving to Living program, where we help our military families, veterans, responders out there going from what they did in service to a civilian life, and we walk that out through that transition process. So it's at served.vet. I think 2021 is going to see a lot of growth for it, because in 2020 I really figured out what it is that I wanted to do. and it's not making $1 million with the podcast. It's really just to be in service to those that have served. And that was always the mission, but I didn't know how I was going to carry it out. So great things happening here in 2021 for it. And as Kyle said, when you get a sticker campaign, you get 2 stickers. And then when you give you keep one and then you give one, and then you get served. And that's where Kyle was saying that he got served, because I pass them out and I say, you just got served. So that's the fun of it.
Awesome.
I like it. I like
Thanks
it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. Yes, thank you for having me. Great.
You bet. Take care.
I just saw on his profile, congratulations on baby number 7 coming.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's beyond, because like when you go from 2 to 3, you go from 1-on-1, like, defense to zone. When you got 7, I think you go crazy. But John Piper coming to us on YouTube. John, how are you, buddy?
Hey guys, good to be back. Hey, first question, and I got some comments if you'll have me. I was on a couple months ago, and we were talking about studio lighting. As you guys both know, it's a cost. I heard you, Jim, talking about upgrading your MacBook. Dave, you're always tweaking with microphones and different things, but I've added some more lighting. I know in the past, and I've added another camera. I know I've got some work to do, but I want to get your all's thoughts on kind of the overall lighting. I mainly do podcasts, but also do some live video stuff. So kind of your thoughts. I know that's a little darker, obviously.
I was going to say that shot is a little dark, but that one looks decent.
John, what are you using? What'd you put up for lights?
They are some,
your sound is great, by the way. Just let's be really clear. Your sound is really good, but
yeah, PR40 with a Rodecaster Pro, man. I love the setup.
Good. Yeah, you sound good.
Love this.
What about lights?
Lights, I've got some fairly inexpensive box lights. I did order, I've got my cameras on this, like, if I had a picture, I've got like a plumber's pipe going across the wall with some mounts. And I almost ordered it as like a $300 light. I think will probably solve the problem, but I held off because I ordered like $300 worth of brackets. But you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I've got 3 box lights mounted up in the sky.
Are they LED?
No,
they're fluorescent, right?
Yeah.
And so you need you need to work on the tuning of those lights a little bit. So they're in that temperature zone, right? We measure lights by their temperature. That's not how hot or cold they are. It's where they are on the spectrum of light. Fluorescents put out really white, hot light, and that doesn't look good on us. And so you need to warm them up with something. So a light that's a little farther down in the spectrum as far as getting some of that color in. And then you probably need to diffuse them a little bit. So they may be like right there. That is so white, right? That you have right there. And then your other side is too dark. So you need to work on your placement a little bit, work on diffusing them some, see if you can get some LED tuned lights that you can kind of mess with the tuning on them, and see if you can get some in there to add, get them in front of you, get them diffused, and then mess with the temperature settings to get a warmer kind of, feel in there. That's all. So something in between this and then your other view, which is just where you're really, really bright. Dave, what else would you add to that?
Yeah, I will put a link in the chat room here too. I just bought a pair of Dazzne, Dazzne. I was looking for the Elgato Streamlight, and what Jim is talking about, like I can make myself darker and brighter, but I can also make these. I can make them very white, like I'm turning almost blue now. Or I can actually make them, like right now I look like I'm embarrassed because this is really, really kind of yellow-ish. So, which is great because I have no skin tone. I'm basically a Smurf. So I can kind of go in here and boost that up a bit. And they work with a little remote. So I'm doing this all.
Is that wireless on your network Wi-Fi?
No, it's wireless with a remote. Yeah. But the thing
it's its own remote. It's not on the Wi-Fi.
It's like a Bluetooth. Its own
like it.
Yeah. Because I had to change a different channel because I would wake up in the middle of the night and like one would just come on out of nowhere, which tends to kind of freak you out when you live alone and all of a sudden the lights come on and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
I've got the other thing I like about these.
I've got some lights behind me just to give a little buffer light, and they're like inexpensive. They work on my network, but they're just some buffer light back there.
Yeah, I cannot win. I'm using a C920 and I always look a little green. I think I need to double check and make sure I'm plugged directly into the computer. I know one week I did that and everybody said I looked a heck of a lot better. I might be going back through a hub, but
John,
I have lighting in the background like you do. So I'm
check your settings too, John. In the camera, there could be some white balance. There could be some temperature settings. You might.
I've got is a Sony A6000 that this look, and then the Canon. I've got a Canon camcorder that lets a lot more light in, but I need to tweak them.
Yeah, that's your That's your sensor, by the way. It's the difference probably in sensors, not in light, because that room is probably lit exactly the same. The sensors are perceiving that light differently, and so you might want to check your camera controls too before you buy. But definitely, to Dave's point, get some tunable, and we're coming up on a hard stop here, but definitely work on some tunable pieces. Okay. So John, thanks for jumping in.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, John, before you go, where do we find your podcast?
You can search Behind the Dish, Google Podcasts, Apple, Spotify.
Oh, sorry, that is the wrong answer.
Where's your website,
I'm just going to start saying.
Where's your website?
What's your website?
I'm sorry.
No.
I've been doing this 4 years, and it's really just on Facebook. I haven't created
come on, no,
sorry,
John, I love you, but
hey, I used to like you guys too. I used to like you guys. So what you're telling me is I need to go ahead and get off my ass. I'm hope I can say that on the air. Get off my ass and on the website, right?
Get your website going today.
David,
what's your podcast called?
Haircut, man. Your hair looks good, man. I was kidding earlier with the comment about the hair. BehindTheDishMedia.com.
Perfect.
There you go. That's what we're looking for.
Sorry. I'm a slow learner.
Did you have more questions? If not, you can stick around for the post show.
Yeah, quick.
Okay. Well,
so hang tight, and we'll do it in the post show.
Yeah. So, So it's wow. That time goes by so quick. And thanks to the chat room, we have 32 people online, and we had at one point 13 on Clubhouse. So that's amazing. We deeply appreciate everybody coming out to AskThePodcastCoach.com/live, and as well as in Clubhouse. Jim, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm over at theaverageguy.tv and long conversation about the Mac this week. So if you want to hear about that and adding a Mac to a PC environment, theaverageguy.tv, I'll be posting it later today.
Hey, Jim.
All right, John. We'll talk about that more in the post show.
And then this week on the School of Podcasting, we're going to be talking about your very first episode. I came up with a fun analogy that I'm going to play with that because I've heard a couple, and I don't know if people are just finding old episodes of me because they're using episode like my advice from like 2006. And I'm going to explain why that's really not good advice anymore.
That's the hard part about leaving audio out there, isn't it?
And I also found some new toys, some new tools. We might talk about some of those. I know Jim's been playing with raindrop.io. We might talk about that a little later. But I found a cool calendar tool that's got a lifetime charge right now at AppSumo for $13. So if you want to get out of your Calendly or Acuity or whoever you're using to schedule once, it looks interesting. So I'm actually going to buy that after the show and play with it because I don't want to talk about something I don't know what I'm talking about. So that'll be coming up on the School of Podcasting. Ask the Podcast Coach again every week here, AskThePodcastCoach.com/live. Thanks to Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Thanks to the awesome supporters. Thanks to the Podcast Network and everybody on Clubhouse and here on YouTube. Stick around for some post show.